Good morning, everyone. This is RCV News, and I'm your host, Ryan Bowling. I want to read an article from the Epoch Times in reference to the takeover of the Taliban in Afghanistan. I'm pretty sure most of you have already heard about that, but in an article, a hitting, powerful article written in the Epoch Times entitled Veterans Express Anger, Sadness Over Taliban Takeover of Afghanistan. And listen to this. Says Billy Vaughn of Florida is hesitant to say whether the war in Afghanistan was worth it or not, believing it's not for him to pass judgment. All the Gold Star father knows for certain is that his son Aaron died in that faraway conflict 10 years ago, almost to the day at the tender age of 30. Each year the family struggles with their loss. It's always a difficult day, Vaughn told the Epoch Times. He was about as humble a boy as there ever could be. At the same time, he was a fierce protector and a fierce defender against injustice. And here's a photo of this young man. It's a Navy SEAL. Aaron was a proud member of the Navy SEAL Team 6, who believed in the sacred trinity of flag, family, and faith. And I just wanted to say, I've always had the greatest respect and honor for special operations, especially the Navy SEALs. The training that these guys go through in order to be the most elite special units military service in the world is incredible. And I salute every veteran and every serviceman and woman that have fought or have put their lives on the line to bring democracy and freedom to not only our own country, but other countries as well. In the end, he gave up his life for that flag, his father said. Vaughn lost his son when his U.S. Army helicopter exploded over the Tangai Valley in Afghanistan on August 6, 2011, killing all 30 aboard. It was the largest loss of life incident in the Afghanistan war. Vaughn said that if his son was alive today, he'd be sickened by the sight of the Taliban taking over Afghanistan over thousands of U.S. service members after thousands of U.S. service members died defending the country against tyranny. And I just want to make a quick comment before I read the rest of this article. This is the part here that's hurting this father, because all of these people, all these servicemen that were over there for all this time, I believe 20 years, died in his mind for nothing. And it makes him raise the question, why were we over there to begin with? Now, starting off at the beginning of this article, he didn't want to pass judgment, but it can't help but make one wonder, why were we over there to begin with? Now, that's a whole nother story, and I digress. That's a valid question. I've never seen such a tragedy unfold in my lifetime, Vaughn said. It's really inexplicable to describe in my mind how badly the Biden administration has handled the crisis. There is no reason for us to flee like dogs with our tails between our legs. At best, Vaughn sees it as a replay on steroids of the failed Middle East policy of the Obama-Biden administration. He, Biden, is full of insults for everybody else, Vaughn said. You just can't hardly believe that people are that stupid. It makes you wonder if it wasn't done on purpose. And that's interesting. He says you just can't believe that people are that stupid. Now, if he's referring to the masses of people that believe what the Biden administration is saying, or just that what Biden is saying himself, I'm not sure. But if either way, if he's talking about the masses of people being stupid, I'm going to talk about that in a book that I'm going to introduce in a few minutes. And that may explain why a lot of people their minds seem to be like lost. You try to give them new information, their minds reject it. I'm going to talk about that in the book that I'm going to introduce to you guys later on in this video. He goes on to say, we lost a boy over there. What I would say is this. These men and women who fought and died did what they did because they loved this country and they wanted to help the people of Afghanistan. If my son were alive today, he'd do it all over again. he added. And I just want to read that portion of the article. You can read the rest of the article in the description box below, and just click on it there and go to the Epoch Times and read the rest of that article. But I just want to say, just briefly, before I introduce this book, I just want to say briefly to all of those soldiers and servicemen and women who are serving in Afghanistan. I salute you guys. There's a lot of controversy about why we're over there. We've been over there for 20 years, and there's a lot of controversy of why we've been over there. You know, was there really a war on terrorism, or was it just a setup? Was it just something to find an excuse to be over there for the oil fields, or whatever the case may be? You know, we can go into that all day. Trillions. Like I said, the rest of the article, you can read the rest of the article. He makes a statement that we spent over $2 trillion over there, 2 trillion or 10 trillion or something like that with a T. That's a lot of money. That's a lot of money, and no one is, and no one knows exactly why. But we got to remember that the servicemen and women that sacrificed their lives weren't thinking about why we're supposed to be over there. They were doing what they were supposed to do. Their desire and their mind was to bring freedom to the people in that region. And now that the Taliban, however you want to pronounce it, have come in and have taken over, the freedom that many of those women had, that the Americans brought to them, is now going to be taken from them. And to this father, that's an embarrassment. That's an embarrassment, and it hurts his heart. So let's keep these servicemen and women that are already over there, besides those that are still there, keep them in prayer. Keep them in prayer. Let's salute them. Let's keep them encouraged, because they're doing what they're called to do. All right. So I just wanted to bring that out. We do know right now that Biden has called the soldiers home, and now it's causing a big ruckus all over this country. There's a lot of tension, and it looks really bad for the Biden administration. It looks really bad for the Biden administration. So now I want to introduce a book, and this book is pretty tattered up. It's called Mass Awakening. It's one of my in a series of my book series called Mass Awakening. And as you can see, this book is pretty tattered up, and that shows you that I've been reading this book a lot. It was written by a man by the name of Paul McQuire. You can't see it here, it's so tattered up, but it was written by a man by the name of Paul McQuire, which some of you may know. And he's a prolific prophecy teacher. And also he was a professor, a eschatology professor, end times prophecy eschatology professor some years ago. And he's written numerous books dealing with a subject that a lot of people would probably find conspiratorial. But I'm going to read a couple of quotes from this book that this author writes down in the book from actual people that existed that may explain why masses of people seem to have this apathy, this lack of desire to fight against tyranny, this lack of desire to focus on anything political. You can't help but wonder, why is it that people seem to be so dead in their mind? Why is it that people seem to be like they're under some kind of mind control or something, except a few that watch these videos or talk about these videos, or that are politically involved, or that read or whatever. Why is it that people's mind seems to be gone, fractured? And I want to read a couple of quotes from this book that may explain why the masses of people in America, and not only America, but all over the world, seem to have this apathy towards what's going on, this lack of desire to push and to fight against tyranny, to fight against things that they know aren't right. And it's on page 10 of this book. Let me get it over here. The book's so tattered up. And it's entitled, the chapter is entitled The Ultimate Revolution. And this is what the author, Paul McQuire, says here. He says, as bizarre as it all may sound, I will prove to you in this book that such ideas are not the product of madness or paranoia, but there are in fact truths which are baby steps towards awakening your mind and soul. And what he's talking about is mind control. This book is about mind control. Mass mind control, not the mind control. You hear the term mind control, people think he's talking about I will do what Simon says, walking around. No. He's talking about mass mind control, where political leaders and people in higher levels of power use brainwashing and propaganda to control the masses. And when I read these two quotes to you, hopefully it will spark an understanding in your mind and get you to thinking maybe there's a bigger picture, because I personally believe that there's a bigger picture of why people are so apathetic, why they're so lost in their brain. You try to bring information to them, they just reject it. There may be a reason for that. Let me read these. Let me continue to read on. He says, in addition, I will provide extensive and credible scientific documentation of the facts that the masses of people have been programmed to believe a very narrow set of ideas for the purpose of mass control. For example, Aldous Huxley, that's ALDOUSHUXLEY, and you guys may look that up on your own time, a scientist and the author of Brave New World, was giving a lecture at the University of Berkeley on March the 20th, 1962. And he was given, and the lecture was entitled The Ultimate Revolution. And it was given to a gathering of scientists and neuropsychiatrists in this college university. And this is what Aldous Huxley, this scientist, said to these scientists, these other scientists that he was giving his speech to. And this is his direct words. He says, there will be in the next generation or so a pharmacological method of making people love their servitude or slavery and producing dictatorship without tears, so to speak, producing a kind of painless concentration camp for entire societies, so that people will in fact have their liberties taken away from them, but would rather enjoy it. Get that? Would rather enjoy it. What he's saying is that there will come a time where people's freedoms will be taken from them, but they will enjoy it. They won't be able to realize that their freedoms are being taken from them. And not only will they not be able to realize that their freedoms are being taken from them, but they're going to enjoy it. Then he goes on to say, they will rather enjoy it because they will be distracted. Listen to this. They will be distracted from any desire to rebel by propaganda or brainwashing. And remember what I said earlier, the way people are in general, they seem to lack a desire to push against things that don't sound right. When Biden gets up and tries to force vaccinations on the people, it seems like no one cares. When you have these corporations and businesses and so forth, like here in the city of Cleveland. In the city of Cleveland, we had a push to change the Cleveland Indians from the Cleveland Indians to the Cleveland Guardians. And I did a little short video on that some time ago on my phone. I did a little short video of that some time ago because I was just disgusted. Well, what's interesting about this is that they're going to go ahead with this, and it seems to me that none of the Cleveland Indian fans are fighting against this. Now, somebody might say that's not no big major deal, but that's the whole mind. That's not a big major deal. Or they're just trying to change the name, but they're going to change everything up. They're rewriting history. And yet people have this apathetic mentality where I don't care. As long as I have my entertainment, I'm good. So you okay with the Cleveland Guardians? See, when it becomes the Cleveland Guardians, it's going to be something else. It's going to be something else. It's going to be something else. And it's going to be something else. And according to this man, Aldous Huxley, decades ago, suggested that in the next generation or so, there will come a means by which it will be used to manipulate people's minds to control them. This sounds like what he's saying, what this man has said decades ago is actually coming to pass. So I'm going to go and read the rest. He says, I'm going to read that again. But will rather enjoy it because they will be distracted from any desire to rebel by propaganda or brainwashing enhanced by pharmacological methods. And this seems to be the final revolution. Now, what he means by pharmacological methods, obviously, he means drugs. Think about this push to bring about drugs. You know, marijuana and this and that, all these type of drugs. You can't help but wonder What is the real motive behind that? Is the motive to get people to the point where they're so brain dead that when you try to control them and control their perceptions, it will be easier? In my personal opinion, based on my observations, based on my experiences, and based on my reading and studying from different books that I have, it seems evident that that's what's going on. There's a bigger picture going on here. I want to read one more quote from a well-known scientist. This scientist is, let's see, one second here. Do I have it here? One second. Okay. This scientist is a scientist by the name of Bertrand Russell. And Paul McQuire writes down a quote from this man, Bertrand Russell. And by the way, he says Bertrand Russell was a Fabian socialist. Now that's a whole nother topic in himself, but a Fabian socialist is basically, in summation, a Fabian socialist is a socialist that believes in bringing in socialism, i.e. communism, into a country through implementation over time. Not through guns, not through, control or rather force, but through brainwashing, deception, and misinformation until people generally begin to accept socialism without being forced to accept it. That's what a Fabian socialist is. Now listen to what he said. In 1952, another Fabian socialist, Bertrand Russell, said, quote, "I think the subject which will be of most importance politically," look at this now, "I think of the subject which will be of most importance politically is mass psychology." Psychology is dealing with the mind, dealing with thinking. He says, "Mass psychology is, scientifically speaking, not a very advanced study. This study is immensely useful to practical men, whether they wish to become rich or to acquire the government. It is, of course, as a science, founded upon individual psychology, but hitherto it has employed rule-of-thumb methods, which were based upon a kind of intuitive common sense. Its importance has been enormously increased by the growth of modern methods of propaganda." Now listen to this. This is the part that I hope will get us to thinking about what's going on right now. Of these, most influential is what is called education. Religion plays a part, though a diminishing one. The press, the cinema, and the radio play an increasing part. End quote. This was in 1952. In 1952 when this man said this. Sounds pretty prophetic, doesn't it? And he mentions education. And I said this in a video some time ago, that our school systems in America now, whether from K through 12 or whether in the universities and colleges all over this country, are nothing more than indoctrination centers. That's all they are. They're not really teaching our children what they need to know: math, history, science, art. They're not really teaching them those things. It seems evident that they're, based on my observations, my studies, and my experience, it seems evident that they're trying to indoctrinate the youth to accept socialism. And according to Bertrand Russell, that the method that will be used to do that is through the educational system and through the press and through radio. Notice he mentions radio. He didn't mention the internet. Why? Because the internet wasn't around back then. This is 1952, decades ago. So it shows you, in my opinion, and there's a whole lot of other quotes that I don't have time to read right now. I may do that later on in a future video. But it shows that this idea of mind control to get the people to think a certain way, to accept a certain belief system, has been going on for decades. Now you may say, what's the solution? It sounds kind of like pretty somber. My solution is the same solution that I've been saying: persistence. Persistence in exposing what they're doing and telling it like it is. Persistence in showing this far left radical liberal push to get our youth, to get this country, to get this world to accept an ideology and a belief system that will be detrimental to millions of people all over this country and millions of people all over the world. We can't stop anything, but we can certainly hinder it by being persistent. They're persistent in what they're doing. We should be persistent in what we're doing. They seem to have the upper hand because they have most of the media, most of the films, most of the music. They have more control over that. But just because they have more control doesn't mean that we shouldn't be persistent in doing what we're doing. We can break the mold of people's minds by being persistent and telling them that this is not right, that you're being manipulated psychologically and that you're being controlled psychologically. The Bible says, Jesus said this, I'm not preaching, but Jesus said, you shall know the truth and the truth shall set you free. He wasn't just talking about spiritual, but he was also talking about intellectually, politically, physically, socially, relationally. Whatever forms of things that may be binding you, when you know the truth, it will set you free. And this is my goal, is to tell you the truth, to share the truth with you. But I hope you all have enjoyed this video and have gotten something from this video. If you have any comments, please comment in the comment section. Press the like button. Please press that like button. Press that like button. It would be so appreciated. Make your comments, share this video, and subscribe. God bless you, and see you next time on RCB News.